Greetings, everyone. This is Mike Riley, the voice of Ironman. And this is the Old School Tri Show with my Kiwi mates Cameron Harper and Brian Ashby. The show that talks about all things triathlon, old and new. We're powered by Ansco Foods, bringing you nutrition and good health from New Zealand's beef and lamb. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome along to another edition of the Old School Tri Show, brought to you by our friends at Ansco Foods. And today, Brian, well, inspiration comes from right across the beautiful community of Ironman New Zealand. But today's guest, well, she is really inspirational to so many and quite a late bloomer to our sport.
Wonderful talent, all distances, 2 times Olympian, World Cup champion at Olympic distance. She won at 70.3s. And of course, she was the Ironman 2011 New Zealand champion as well. She still continues to this very day to volunteer in beautiful Taupo. We're talking about, of course, Sam Warriner.
Ansco Foods is proud to be the new naming partner of Ironman New Zealand, ensuring every stroke, pedal and stride is powered by the best nature has to offer. Ansco Foods is on a mission to bring nutrition and good health from New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Ansco Foods, putting the iron in Ironman with New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Visit anscofoods.com/Ironman to find out more.
Sam, thanks heaps for joining us on the Old School Tri Show. It's awesome to catch up with you again. And it was really good fun sort of just going back, going online and just recapping details of your career. And the funny thing that sort of struck me, and I'd sort of actually forgotten about it, was you sort of rocked in to the sport at elite level, Olympic distance and so on. You were a little bit older than sort of most people at times when sort of people are getting to the peak of their career. You were just sort of rocking in at that stage like a rookie. So where had you been hiding all these years? How did you sort of arrive at the sport?
Well, I was going to say, first of all, thank you for having me. But now, age thing, I don't know. All I can say is, how do I put it? Yeah, I was older in the sport, but I always wanted to be an athlete. You know, like you go back to sixth form college back in England and, you know, they're doing those awards and it's like, you know, what do you want to achieve? And mine was straight away, I want to go to the Olympics, you know, sort of thing. For me, I wasn't hiding anywhere. I just think I'd come through school, went straight to uni, and I was an all right athlete, but I wasn't anything major. And in those days, if you weren't good, like, you know, in your late teens, 20s, it was just like, well, you probably should think about getting a job. So I went straight into teaching, but I still kept up the fitness and the training. And then, I don't know, when I was 25 to 29, coming over here, I got into the women's only try, thanks to, you know, Hooksy, you know, got into the women's only try, did one of them. That led to me doing a duathlon in Dargaville, the local one, where you won a box of Kumaras and then you got a free airplane flight, so you could choose where you went to do. So I went down to Palmerton to do the duathlon champs there. Qualified, you know, I didn't really know anything about the sport that could do that. Qualified to go to Calais and do the duathlon champs there. And I thought, well, I'll go because then I can go home to see my family in England and go across on the Channel Tunnel. So I thought it'd be a great little trip sort of thing. So I went and did that and got second in that for my age group, 25 to 29. And then just thought, oh, well, I'll, you know, have a go at the triathlon one then. And I exactly the same thing. It just little stepping stones. You know, I've always done sport. Sport's the only thing I was good at. You know, I'm a PE teacher trained. And right from an early age, I wanted to be a PE teacher. I was very upset when they said you had to get your maths and English. I was like, what? But glad I've got them. And, you know, and PE teaching was what I wanted to do. So I've always kept myself fit. And then, I don't know, just, you know, you always tell the kids to, you know, focus on progression, you know, not comparing yourself to others. I was always different coming through, but I always set myself little goals. You know, if I've achieved this now, what else can I achieve? And I just had that, you know, inside of me, that belief that I've come this far. I can do it. Yes, I'm a lot older than other people, but it's a second chance, you know, because, yeah, you're all right. I didn't really come through to my 30s. And, yeah, I saw it as a second chance. So any opportunity I was given, I was going to take the most of it and make the most of it. But nothing was different. It was still the hard work, the consistency, the patience, setting those little goals, working towards them. It was just I was doing it at an older age, you know. I mean, I remember racing in Korea, in Tongyong, and I was, won a World Cup. I won there, and there was 4 of us, and it went down to 3, and on the last lap was 2 of us, and there was one girl, Holly Lawrence, I think her name was, and she was like 18, and the commentator actually said to me, saying like, "Oh, how did it feel racing someone half your age?" And I was like, well, I hadn't actually thought about that until, you said about it. But when I think about it, I thought, well, you've got lots more opportunities to be on top. I haven't, because I'm 36 and you're only 18. But hey, age is just a number. And I'm very fortunate the career that I did have. But I think it's just that belief, if I've achieved this now, what else can I do? And like anything, my way to the top wasn't the normal pathway, but if you want to achieve, you've got to be tough, and you've got to be brave and make most opportunities and find different ways to fundraise, make the money to go and live your life. I mean, even in the early years, I'd be teaching at Foreign Girls High, and I would go and race. And the girls, Emma Snowsill and Liz Blatchford, are all talking where they're going next. And I'm like, oh, I'm going back to school, because I've had 4 weeks off and it's now term time. So I'm going back to school for, 8 weeks, and then I'll go again. So it was just, yeah, I don't know. But as a youngster, I always played lots of sports. I swam, I biked, and I run. But I didn't really, going through the process like that triathlon offers, where age group is racing the same day as the elite, going to those events, that's what gave me that carrot thing. Actually, I can do this.
When you were at school and you're saying you did swimming and biking and running, but you wanted to go to the Olympics, did you? Yeah. Was that it? I mean, a lot of people when they're growing up, they want to be in the, they might be a fan of the Black Ferns or the All Blacks or the netball team or whatever. Was that a serious goal? Did you think to yourself, I've actually got the talent to get the Olympics? Or is that something you're just like, you know what, I'm going to go to the Olympics and let's see what happens?
No, I think I always just said I wanted to go to the Olympics. I wanted to, represent my country, if that makes sense. I wouldn't have said it was definitely for triathlon, because I wasn't doing a lot of biking. It was mainly swimming and running. But I always wanted to go to the Olympics. But no one really questioned me what sport I'd go for. I was just doing well, in a small town, sort of small hometown, doing well. And, as usual, there wasn't a lot of girls doing a lot of sport at those times, because dropout was so high. So that helped as well, sort of thing. And everyone just accepted I'd go. But I can't really say I would have probably picked triathlon, no.
What would you have picked? What was your natural leaning?
Probably swimming. But I mean, yeah, I was, swimming. But that was obviously the great, aerobic base for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because the thing is, as you developed into triathlon, before we started, Brian and I were talking about your ability to be able to be in touch through the swim, and often be towards the front of the swim. You were really solid on the bike. Then you had the most beautiful, and you still do, most beautiful running style. It's always kept you in good stead, that run.
Yeah, well, not now, but yeah, in those days, yeah.
Well, compared to the vast majority of us, Sam, you still do.
True. I think, like swimming, being at the front of the swim is the key. And for me, I was strong in all 3. I often get asked what was your best, your strongest. And I think for me, I was strong in all 3. Like you said, I'd be up there in the swim, the bike. I can remember one year, I think I trained for the 2008. One year I was just slightly off the swim pace, and so for us the goal was to be go out for that first 10 minutes of the bike, ride as hard as you can just to get it. If I missed it, I was in that pack. So I'd do things like that. I'd look at what's happening in the world of racing out there. Who are the ones coming through? Who are the people that may be able to change what's going on? And I would arrange my training around that. So therefore, like I say, one year I really improved my run, so I could get off and run, 33, 30, whatever it was in Edmonton or whatever. But I would try and do it that way. So you'd look at the season, look what's happening. So I'd try and be ahead of the game, think outside the box, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And also, as well as I was very wary as well is, towards the later stage of my career, it was the young ones coming through. Well, they're always going to have that faster speed than me. It's just, age sucks. But I would always still be competitive, even though, regularly people would say, or the commentator would say, oh, here comes 36-year-old school teacher from Whangarei, not really helping me. But I would still always think, well, how can I get the best out of myself? And what do I need to do in training to make that happen?
At what point, you came through the women's races and the duathlon and so on. At what point did you sort of think, actually, you know what? that Olympic thing is real, and I'm
Yeah.
going to give it a really good crack. And just, I'm not going to die wondering. So was there a sort of hallelujah moment where you thought that it could be on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're going back like, yeah, probably. I think probably when I started to get invites to go along to like some of the high performance camps. I think that was it. Like for the 2002 Commonwealth Games, I was a training partner, for
Yeah.
Heather and Megan and those guys and Evelyn. And so then I went along, to Font Ramon in France, and I was just purely a training partner. I think that gave me a sense. Actually, I can do this because I can compete with these guys. I can train with them, and the Olympics is only 2 years away. So I think that was the carrot, and I think it was like the whole time. I do remember thinking, "Wow, this is amazing, Sam. Sam, wow, you're doing it. This is for real." And it was really. I'm a big believer in it's hard work. Hard work and consistency gets you, and that's my motto all the way through. And so it was just even though I was in those moments, just think, right, let's just go back to basics. It's hard work, do the best you can in training and, tick off those little goals. So, yeah, I think it was just, the progression I was making, seeing the improvements in training. I mean, obviously as well for I was, coming off the duathlon or whatever, I wasn't really on a training program. So making that change to consistent, proper training and understanding how the body works. I just think a lot of the time I was like, well, if I've achieved this now, what else can I achieve? And also, as well as for me, it was a second opportunity. Not many women in their 30s would be as lucky as me to have this opportunity. So for me, it was like, I'm going to do everything I can to achieve this. And there was like everyone has their stories of sacrifices and challenges and stuff. But if that's what it took to get to where I needed to be, then I was prepared to make those choices.
I just try to remember how you qualified for Athens, and I remember interviewing you, and I'm guessing it might have been the Oceania Champs in Queenstown where you might have just missed. Did you qualify later at the Nationals? How did it work out? How did you qualify for Athens?
Yeah, no one qualified in Queenstown that year, so we had to go to the Oceania in Hobart in
Right. Yeah.
Debbie Tanner, Chanel Barrett, I think one other as well, and it was just the first person across the line. And I just remember going there, and as always, that three of us were in the lead pack on the swim, lead pack on the bike, so it came down to the run, and I literally had the best transition out of them all, and went into the run 10 seconds, and I literally had that 10 seconds from Chanel Barrett the whole way through the race. But the whole time I was saying, I'm not losing this now. I'm not losing. It was just purely mindset and mental. Like, this is my opportunity. How long have I wanted to go to the Olympics? I'm going to do it. So it was in Tasmania, and it was the first. Evelyn Williamson, I think, was there actually. The first Kiwi over the line, because we only had one spot that year. And it was just the best feeling ever. It was just unbelievable.
Because that was I remember that race really well, and that's such a mindset thing. I remember that you doing that, because that was very much a Hamish Carter kind of strategy. Real quick transition, and then get that gap and just hang on for grim death.
Yeah, it really was. It was, it was a mind game really, and it was just being as tough as I could and just digging into all those things that you've trained, you practice, you learn to train, you learn to race, you learn to win. And really it was about, getting that 10 seconds. And if ever there was a surge, I would surge, and, going around the corners. And when I saw Chanel Debs coming the way, running faster to make them think I was strong and really in control, but going fast. Hey, it's a game at the end of the day, but to go to the Olympics, from when I think where I came from and how I got there, to go to the Olympics was my biggest dream ever. And sometimes, people say, what was one of the highlights? That was one of my highlights, because often just qualifying for the Olympics is often harder than actually when you're there. I mean, I haven't had great success at the Olympics, but at least I got to experience them, wear the fern, be part of that opening ceremony and stuff like that. That's just unreal. And I think going back into school now, what I do now, some of the kids, because obviously, unless you're in the media now, kids are like, who are you? How old are you? What? You did that? No way. Going back now, and when you say you went to the Olympics and seeing their faces, it just brings back of how amazing, and how lucky I was to have the opportunity.
what was the reaction of your family back in the UK that their little Sam, who had that dream, is going to have the dream fulfilled?
Well, they know how much how hard I worked and how much I dedicated to it. But they were so excited as well. I mean, they came over to watch. Being Athens, it was just over the, not far for them. But they were stoked as well. And I think as well, it was just, people admired the resilience. Like at 30, mid 30s, and you're going to the Olympics. There's, just the cycle of life. There's so many things that you had to overcome. So no, they were thrilled. They were, they were ecstatic. So yeah. It was cool.
And the race itself, you were 18th there, and what did you sort of learn? I'm guessing you learned a whole lot of things that set you up for what was to become a really super impressive career.
Yeah. I mean, the Olympics, I think, my biggest downfall with the first Olympics was I was just so excited. Every time I heard, welcome to the 2000, Olympics, Athens Olympics. Every time I heard that, my heart would go, flutter. And I was so excited about being in the village, so excited if I met, heroes or who you sat down with at dinner. It was just, the whole emotion to me that when I got on the start line, I was absolutely exhausted, that was the year there was the big hill in it. And it was big. We all trained for it. We all knew it. That wasn't the problem. I just was emotionally, one of the biggest thing I learned from that is, how, everyone says rest up, don't get involved in all the hype and everything like that. Well, I was involved in that, and hey, it showed in my performance, but you've got to learn these things, I mean, you learn to train, you learn to race, you learn to win. And, for me, that was a great learning experience because I thought how differently I'd go in next time or how different I'd go into, face my races, much calmer, more consistent.
There's a lot. I was going to say, Sam, there's a lot of people. Look, I've never been close to going to any Olympics, right? So we'll just put that out there. But luckily enough to meet a lot of people like yourself that have, and a lot of people say you almost have to go to an Olympics to experience one to then actually have a decent go at another one.
Yeah, I think that is the case. Even when I watch the Olympics now, I mean, I get emotional, whether the person wins or the person doesn't, because I've experienced both sides, and you just know how hard they worked, and you also know that how at the Olympics you can build up, everyone's got the hopes on you, whatever, and you can go from being hero to zero in just that short speck of time, and and it isn't amazing. And now looking back on my career, I appreciate how lucky I was to go, and I appreciate what an amazing opportunity it was. But when you're in it and you don't perform well, it's it's the worst thing ever. It feels like you've been a dagger's gone into you. I know there's worse things in life, but at that time, like you say, not everyone can experience it. And just the things of like going to the opening ceremony, walking down the tunnel, and as you get nearer and nearer, the lights and the atmosphere and the crowds just electrifying, seeing that build, and going to watch your other teammates, in their in their big races. And that, the New Zealand had a very special way of getting the whole team together, the way we designed our, bases in the Olympic villages and stuff. It was an amazing time, and I'm very fortunate to experience that.
The next year, 2005, you sort of got a couple of World Cup wins, your first World Cup wins that year. Were you? Oh, hello, we've got a friend there. Hello, how are you? You had your first couple of World Cup wins in 2005. Were you still teaching then, or were you sort of edging away from teaching? What was going on at that point? Were you looking at becoming a full-time triathlete then?
Yeah, I was still relief teaching then. I was still relief teaching, so therefore I would work, a term sort of thing, but then I had the flexibility to go away when I needed. So I was still, relief teaching. I think when I qualified for the Commonwealth Games in 2006 in Melbourne, go to sleep. I'll see you this morning. Love you. When I qualified for the Commonwealth Games 2006, that's when I really said, right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly. And I then, not stopped teaching, but I really committed, did relief less and less.
Yeah. Was that in Whangarei still?
Yeah, Whangarei Girls High or Whangarei Boys High.
Yeah.
The Com Games, we were talking before we came on air with this chat, and two of my favourite women's races ever feature you, and the first one is that 2006 women's race.
That was an incredible race, eh?
absolute belter. Second, third, and fourth for Kiwis. You've had your Olympic experience. You've got Andrea Hewitt, who you probably had barely even met before you became teammates. Debbie Tanner, who you knew well. What are your recollections of that day? Obviously, Emma Snowsill on fire.
Yeah. Oh, just yeah, just one of those days, like Hamish says it, one of those days where, things came together. We had a good swim. We all had good swims, actually. And then on the bike just felt, it wasn't easy, but it was, like a nice paced bike. It wasn't, you weren't killing yourself on that bike. We were all together sort of thing. And then it was just a case of like, going for it on the run. And I knew I was going in fit and I knew I was going in strong. And like literally, I came out of transition, followed Emma Snowsill out. I think there was three of us. There was me, Emma, and someone else. Got clear, and we just, ran together for a while. Then Emma pulled away. I tried to go with her, and I went for a little while, and then she gapped me. But it was just amazing. Just to get silver. Being in Melbourne, you had the big, strong contingent from New Zealand, so the roar of the crowds was absolutely amazing. And then to cross the line, look behind, that Andrew and Debs are coming down was just unreal. To call them in. I remember cheering them both on, thinking, "Gosh, who am I going to cheer for?" Because they're both teammates. It was just amazing, that sprint finish. But when you were in the middle like that in a the Commonwealth, in a games like that, it's just the best feeling ever. And you have to celebrate the highs. You really do. And to me, that was one of the highs of my career, to perform in a big, on the big day, if that makes sense. But it was amazing. And I think to have Andrew and Debs there was even, because we'd spent quite a lot in training camps together as well. We knew each other very well by that point. And once again, it just showed you as well, 2 years later from the 2008 Olympics, I had progressed. I had changed, that I could perform on the big day, which was huge because a lot of it was nerves. I wasn't hyped up as much when I heard 2006 Commonwealth. But I think being in Melbourne was special because, like I said, you had such a big contingent from New Zealand over. That was really cool. And then, the boys as well.
Did it? Yeah. Well, of course, Bevan, of course, getting a silver there, I think, as well, didn't he? But was there much, on the back of that silver medal from the UK? Was there much? Hey, she was one of our girls. She got away. How did she end up in New Zealand? Was there any of that sort of going on?
No, I don't think so. Because I didn't ever race for England. I did well and stuff, and but I never really nationally did well as a youngster. So I don't think. I can even remember going. In those days they did this thing where they tested you. All on physical. They didn't use your mindset, which is all changed now. But I can remember being tested. How far I jumped, how far I run, and other little skill tests, and they turned around and said, "No, she won't make it." So my mum always tells that story of was told, "No, she won't make it. She's not got it," sort of thing. So no, I don't think so. I never really did a lot of triathlon in England, if that makes sense. I certainly wasn't, any what would they say, going for that team, if that makes sense. So no, I think they were quite happy I was in New Zealand.
Over the next sort of year or two, I think the next year you might have been third overall in the World Cup series. In 2008, you finished the year, you're number one in the world through the World Cups, which is just tremendous. And of course, a second Olympic opportunity on a scorching hot Beijing day.
Yeah. Well, that was, those years were the twilight, if that makes sense. And I think the reason why was the consistency, how well I performed. I was able to win a World Cup and then back it up, or finish on the podium and back it up, And I think sometimes in our sport, in those days, that was quite rare. You'd have one good performance and not do it. But I had a bout of 2 years where I was really, back to back, backing them up, sort of thing. So for me, that was, a great time for me. Obviously, the 2008 Olympics, gutted, the crash coming into transition, but also
T2,
sorry,
coming into T2, the tangle of the bikes.
What happened in that, Sam? There was just a tangle of bikes in the end of just running into transition, or heading into transition, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was heading to transition, and the German girl Liska, she had a bad back apparently. So of course, when you run to jump, you run in transition, you run to jump off your bike, and the people on the right, if you're behind her, we all sort of well, she stopped to get off because her back went or something. So of
Oh.
course, piled in,
no.
and the whole group of us came down. So that was really gutting. But like you train, and you told yourself it's okay. What do I need to do now? Get back up. You can still do this. And so I got back up, wrapped my bike. My front wheel was buckled or whatever, so I think we just had to rack it. Started running, and everyone had left transition apart from the people that crashed. And you just like keep positive, keep doing, focus on what you need to do now. Hips forward, quick feet. But to be honest, I wanted it too much. I trained too hard, burnt myself out training in Jingju because it was too hot. So I could have tried the hardest I could have, but I just didn't have it on the run that day because I was burnt out. So, yeah, absolutely gutted. But once again, you're with the team, you celebrate the highs and you smile the way through it. It's not till after you leave, when you're on the plane leaving, you cry because you realise you failed. But, you're with the team and you want to help each other.
But you didn't fail. You were a
Yeah,
two-time Olympian who just gave it her all. So
I was going to say, I think a failure would be if you turned up and you just couldn't go, or the surge goes and you can't keep up, or whatever that is. I mean, that you could, and you're like I say, you're much more talented than I would be. But when your race is affected through no fault of your own, what do you do, man? What do you do?
I know, but you still carry that with you, and it's like. And that's why I think when I see the Olympics now and something goes wrong with some of those athletes, I cry because I remember how it felt. It's it's still raw, and you were that person where it didn't go as planned, and things happen and whatever. But I think in a way, everything happens for a reason, and I'm very big when I talk to my kids about it's a journey, and it's a roller coaster of highs and lows, and where you are in your journey. You guys have only just started, and for me, I can say that, but then 10 weeks later, and I think this is also one of the highlights of my career, one of my proudest moments is went to Mexico, and it's the last World Cup of the season, and like you said, I won the overall series, and I was like third in that point. If I won there though, I had the opportunity to win the whole series. So I went to Mexico to race, and that was like 10 weeks later. And for me, I did that. I won the race. But for me, the proudest thing was how I was on the 28th of August 2008, rock bottom, devastated, completely low, feeling I'd failed. 10 weeks later, on October the 28th, October 26th, 2008, sorry, I turned around and won in Mexico and won the whole World Cup series. And, to come back from such a low, to turn my training around, to sort of get over that burnout, the overtraining, and to get back on the start line with such a positive mindset and deliver when the pressure's on me, that was one of my proudest moments, because that's all about you, and you're the only one that can get you out of that situation and turn it around. So I was really proud of that, and like I say, I won the whole series that year, so that was very special.
As an athlete, though, Sam, do you sometimes look at athletes that you may meet, or people that that you competed against, or people you see on TV at the Olympics or doing their sport, and you look at them and go, man, I see you. I see you. You've actually fallen in the same sort of hole as perhaps you did in the journey you have. Do you see that often, or do you come across that regularly or not?
I do see it often, and I feel for them, and and I compare it to where I was, sort of thing. Yeah, I do, because that's just sport, unfortunately. You have your highs and you have your lows, and when you're really in it, like when I look back now at my career, talking to my daughter or talking to kids, when I look back at my career, it's like, wow, I had an amazing career, I really did, and I achieved so many things. And when I think like, like I did that all in my 30s, that's pretty amazing too. But it was that second opportunity. I'm really proud of myself, and I'm very fortunate I had the opportunity to do it. But when you're in it, all you think about is like, I've got to perform, this is what I need to do. When am I going to fit my next training session, is how am I going to recover from that? You're so involved in it, and I went to some amazing places, met some amazing people, and, traveled the world really through it. And absolutely now when I think about it, my age, it's like, wow. But when you're in it, you're just thinking about performing. You're just thinking about the next win or the next race. You
don't have time to smell the roses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, when you thanks to social media, you can go on and post up Sam Warriner and you see some races and, show my daughter, or we were in this camp last week. Well, not camp, but we went to Gisborne for this beach challenge and triathlon. We stayed, a group of kids stayed in this Airbnb, and I like put it on. I goes, that was me, that was me, that was me. And they're like, what? Is that you? But I actually looked like I could run fast, and I looked really efficient. I'm like, wow, I did run fast. I know. But hey, at the end of the day, you create your own opportunity, and if you want it enough, you'll go after it.
Yeah.
You come out, you're world number one. You've won that World Cup series in Stella 2008, and you start 2009. You're queen of the castle at this stage. You go to Tauranga, and Cameron was there commentating this one, and
I
you
remember that
absolutely blitzed it, course record.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just all the hard training. I think I was using it as well, for base training sort of thing. That wasn't the year, because at Tauranga I held a few records. I obviously had the fastest one year. I was the oldest one. I mean, I get that quite regularly. And then also I also won it in the slowest time ever as well. That might be in that one, because I was on my road bike and people said I was like a banana. There was nothing air about me. But
yeah, so you I think that year though, you went around a 4:10-ish around there, somewhere in about 2009. I remember being there with Mark Bone commentating it and just going, and I remember saying, Mark and I, like, how do you think you're going to go? You're like, just building base, it'll be all right. Then see ya, and you're overtaking all these blokes. It was just the best day. It was so cool.
Well, I know, but I think also it was that, the unknown, if that makes sense. I was just doing it for training. There was no pressure on me. I knew I was fit from coming off what I'd just done. I was feeling good. And, and it's in your hometown as well, if that makes sense, Well, not hometown, home country, sorry. So, and sometimes it's just nice to race with no pressures or whatever, and you just trust in the training you did, and that's all I did really. Those were the days.
Were you from 2009 on? Did you start transitioning into 70.3s a wee bit more? What stage did you sort of start to switch over? Because you had a lot of success at 70.3 in terms of podiums and wins along the year.
Yeah, well, when I was 2009. The summer of that, I was overtraining in America. I was Siri Lindley and everything, and I had I got knocked off my bike and broke a few ribs, and really sort of mucked me up. And I never really came back from that to be fast enough, if that makes sense. But I was also at the stage where I had to make a decision: am I going to stick with Olympic? I was getting older as well, or go the 70.3. But I think just the damage done from that being knocked off my bike with the ribs and stuff. It just made, caused me to make that change. I then came back here, raced well again at Tauranga and in the Taupo 70.3. That, I decided that I'd make the change, and go to 70.3. So because I was having that successes, I think that's what sort of made that change. I think I was ready for a change as well, ready to step up.
Yeah.
Because I was very aware of the sport. Lots of youngsters coming up from the sport. I was then getting older. I mean, that was like my late 30s, if that makes sense. So I was getting, you have to I was 37, 38. So there was all those factors. But I think that the car crash, I never came back. I could never run as fast as I could for that 10K. And it was just a case of like, right, where do I want to be? How many years have I got left in the sport? And so it just felt the right time. And like I say, coming back here after it all, doing well in Tauranga, the Taupo 70.3 and things like that. It's like, well, let's have this change. I also went to Geelong that year as well. So it carried on down that road.
Because at 70.3 distance, you were, at that stage of your career was perfect for you, really, wasn't it? And I look at the Pro Series for Ironman and the T100 that they've got, just come through a debut season of that. I mean, it's a lovely sort of distance, isn't it, around that time? And just like yourself at that stage would have been perfect.
Oh, I know. It's funny to say that, after Carl Smith, I was like, gosh, that would have really suited me. Damn it,
Yeah.
But hey, that's the way it transforms. The sport moves on, and it's great, sort of thing. Also, there's a lot more, in triathlon, there's a lot more sprints involved now. You've got the Super League and all that. That's all geared much more to the younger market. Not being rude. But I mean, I would love that distance. Yeah, it did suit me. I was a strength athlete. That's why I did so well at ITU. I was a strength athlete, strong in the swim, strong on the bike, strong on the run. Together, that worked. And the strength came through on the 70.3s.
Yeah. Did you, just cutting out a wee bit, but you're back with us. What was the sort of driver for Ironman? Because somewhere through, hello, you back with us? Yep, just shifting around.
Oh yeah, so I'm just getting the charger.
I think we got you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought
Yeah,
we might be doing
we've
one of
had
those.
that before.
I thought we might be doing one of those MTV Cribs tours. Right, we're away.
Apparently, I've
Plugged in.
Right.
Oh, you're being too loud, are you? The
Sorry
family telling you off.
Yeah, keep the family awake. Yeah, I'm a bit the same actually. I'm always noisy.
Yeah, same. It's
Sam, through the you plugged in again now?
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm plugged in now.
Okay, cool.
Happy days.
You'd sort of, traveling around and racing the 70.3s. You had a health setback,
Yeah.
and you also entered an Ironman New Zealand. Can you just sort of tell us a wee bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I had an SVT, so I've always probably had it, if that makes sense, but I could control it. But during that year, it got out of control. I was at Oceanside that year. I don't know if it's related, but I was stung by a stingray. And so I don't know, but that really affected me because it's the poison that it releases into the body. That's sort of thing. But yeah, that year I had an SVT, and just before, sort of September, October, it was so bad I couldn't control it. I'd be doing something very simple, going for an easy jog or just doing a gym session, and my heart rate would spike up really, really high. But it was happening more and more often, and it was happening so often I couldn't just train. I couldn't just have a normal life. So in December, I got it SVT. I got it operated, the simple incision into the groin and just ablated, and it worked, thankfully. And then the December, and then the following March, I then won Ironman.
So just so people don't know, I mean, that's awesome, but that's I'm trying to think, it's a ventricular tachycardia or something like that. It's along those lines, isn't it? SVT?
Yeah. And it's just basically, how they describe it to me, just basically is nerves have grown over, and what they're doing is they're firing too much. So they're just making your pacemaker, make your heart pump too fast, sort of thing. And it's very common in endurance athletes.
Yeah, it is, and there are a lot of. We could spend all evening talking about endurance athletes who've had to have heart ablations to try and just kick that back into action.
Yeah, and I mean, for me it was great. It worked. I know that other athletes have had to have it 2 or 3 times, but for me, I've had it, and even till now, I've never had a reoccurrence.
Wow.
It was related, so it was just basically cut. And I mean, even for me, the recovery pathway was quite quick, if that makes sense. I just had to have a few easy days, and then I just gradually built up aerobic and easy. But I was very fortunate how well mine went.
Yeah. Well, clearly it went exceptionally well, because not too long after you're on the start line for Ironman. And what was it ever any doubt that you'd get to the start line, given what you had been through?
Yeah, it was when it was first done, and probably because it was done like December the 1st for the whole of December, a bit iffy, if that makes sense. And like any athlete with an injury or whatever, you get back training, and you always want to just push it that little bit more, sort of thing. Like run a little bit further, cycle it further. Or does this hurt? Does that hurt? So you're always testing it. So it was for a little while, but thankfully with Ironman, obviously, you're aerobic most of the way, zone 2, on zone 3. So that helped in a way, because, I didn't have to go really, really hard. I could just cope with it. You're always wearing your heart rate monitor, as an athlete, you like, how's my body feeling? Can I hold this pace? Let's have a look. Let's go back. So you're always analysing as well. So having that knowledge, being an athlete, helped. You knew when you felt good. You knew that actually, no, this is going too far. So, but come January, I had the confidence that I was okay, and then it was all on.
It certainly was, because you're entered in a race that you've got the Queen of Topor, Jo Lawn, who essentially with Gina Crawford had sort of jumped in and got a title along the way, but Jo had owned it for so long. You had the current world champion there, Marinda Carfrae there, Kate Bevilacqua, hugely experienced, Belinda Harper. What were your expectations on race day?
Well, um, first of all, you got to, the biggest thing was, you need to learn how to race an Ironman. I don't know if they call it racing, but you need to know how to tackle the challenge of Ironman. So I think for me, like anyone, all my career, if I'm on the start line, I want to win it. Even now, like on the park run start line, I would. It never happens because you've got these young. But anyway, but I want to win it or be the fastest 50-year-old, whatever it is. That's ingrained in you. So I'm not going to lie. Yep, I was going out there and I wanted to win. But the biggest learning was I had to respect the demon of the Ironman. I had to respect how to race it. So instead of like 7.3 to a certain extent, but definitely Olympic, to win it, you've got to be, you've got to be at the front. If you want to win it, you've got to be at the front, and you had to react and you had to do things to get there. You had to work a bit harder here and to do. Where if you did that in Ironman, that could cost you the whole race because So for me, it was about learning how to race and how to pace, being patient. Even simple things like if you're going to overtake someone, it's not like in ITU or something. You build up, being patient. So it was those little things, sticking to your numbers. So we used to travel. Steve and I used to travel down from Whangarei, stay in the same hotel with John Ackland, Terenzo, and all those guys, and do sims on the course. Once a month, and those are the things I learned so much because what worked went well, tick tick. What didn't, and something always went wrong. Sometimes on the way back to Whangarei, I wouldn't speak to Stephen because I like flipping out, think they're doing whatever because you want to be the best. But they were the best things. So I think. Yes, I did want to win, but I also respected the challenge. Yes, Joe and Rinny were there, but I can't control them. I still had to stick to my paces and my race. And I remember because it was pouring down with rain that day as well.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely, like you're coming back up those hills to the last big hill, and I just remember seeing this red shed, and there was loads of people underneath this red shed watching from there, and just the actual like cow muck and dirt just running down the road sort of thing because it was just flooding onto the road. So it was really wet, but and I remember in about probably 3K to go, and Stephen turns up on this moped. He's been racing there, we're absolutely drenched, and he looks at me and said, if you keep this pace going, you've got this, because Rinny was really catching me. And I was remember thinking, mate, you think I can run any faster at the moment? You could think again. But anyway, we got there. But yeah, so I did want to win, but I also respected Ironman, of what Ironman can do. And also I had my race plan and I knew that I had to stick to my race plan, keep checking, am I on pace? Have I eaten? You just audit yourself the whole time. So to me, it was about understanding that. And and I did win, which was phenomenal on your first one. And in Taupo and in my hometown was amazing.
Have you ever run a marathon before that day?
No. I mean... No. 3 quarters, in training, probably, 3 quarters off the bike, but not actually a marathon, no.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Because we were, we were saying before, you were just a beautiful flowing runner. You're a lovely runner to watch. Watching you that day, you talk about sticking to your numbers and holding back, and you'd shorten your stride. You changed everything. You'd become the whole Ironman mindset. You had it all there.
Yeah, I did. And I mean, I can remember at one point getting off the bike and someone told me the story of I remember getting off the bike and I started running, and I felt like a plank of wood. I was like, oh my gosh, and I remember that going and then someone else said they saw Rinny and Rinny just looked so fluent and, really fast, where I looked like a plank of wood. Never thought, oh, well, that's it. She's got Sam. But you go back to what your basics when we taught, the first 20 minutes, just get into your rhythm. You're going to feel crap. But it doesn't matter. The first 20 minutes, that's why in training, every bike ride, you get off and you run for 20 minutes because you get that idea of adapting. So it was just going back to that. And then I thankfully did come right and didn't run like a plank of wood and she didn't catch me. But yeah, it was just that trust. And I think, at the end of the day, I'm a competitor. I mean, I've always been a bit different, when I was my peak days, I'm always the old 30-something-year-old racing with the young ones. I've always been different. I go and pick up my youngest from school, and he's in year 1 now, and people think I'm grandmother. I've always been different. It's just life. But hey, I achieved my goals, and I'm very proud of what I did achieve.
Oh,
It's interesting when you won the New Zealand, the Ironman New Zealand. I remember seeing Mirinda Carfrae at the end, and I said, how was that? She goes, that was awful and awesome all at the same time.
Yeah,
Couldn't get her head around the rain. She's like, I've not raced a rain like this before.
Well, Riley and I used to train together back in Borrego Springs, under Siri Lindley. So we were flatmates with
right.
Hayley Persil, sort of thing. So we knew each other quite well as well. I know how tough really is, and I know that any person in front of her, you could be 10 minutes or half an hour. It's no obstacle to her. She'll just So I knew that, and I knew running was her strength as well. But you just have to believe in yourself. And I knew that if I kept this pace, did this, and ate this, I'd be sweet. And having that trust and that belief, and it was just one of those amazing days and amazing times. And I like, for me, when I did that, I was one of only 3 women to have won a ITU 70.3 and Ironman, and that was really special because I've always talked about progression in my career and stepping up. So for me, once again, that's a goal I achieved.
It's something
fantastic.
you're talking about, something you've been talking about a bit in this interview, Sam, and you talk about resilience, goals, and belief, and that kind of stuff. I mean, your mental game is obviously and always has been incredibly good.
You got
a plan, and you know how to execute the plan. You know what you're capable of doing. You do a very good job of that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's taken years to learn, if that makes sense. I remember, the early days, I was a very nervous racer and very, whatever. And you learn strategies, if that makes sense, to cope with that. But I also think as well is, my story is very different to everyone else. I didn't start doing things, didn't come through to my 30s. You mentioned Andrew Hewitt and Debbie. They were winning their under 23s, and I'm in my 30s racing elite, and then they came in to be my teammates, if that makes sense. So I did it a very different way, and I think I also it was my second chance, if that makes sense. So it was my childhood dream to live this life of being a professional athlete, and for me, I was very very much like, this is my second chance, and I'm going to make the most of it. And having that resilience and that, as a kid, I always, for me, or it seemed like it might not be that way, but for me as a kid, if I wanted something, I had to work harder than the person next to me. And that was my motto. So I always remember that, I can remember being swimming and, trying to get under, a minute for that 100-meter freestyle. It took me ages. Yeah, other people did it for like 2 months and they seemed to. Revising for exams, I revised for like months and get passes, and these other, but you just accept it. You got responders and non-responders, and I was a non-responder. And I learned that at a very young age, but I also learned if you want something in life and you believe in it and you put the effort in, it will happen. And I just kept on that.
Yeah, the flip side of the things that you're sort of saying, I wonder, as a professional school teacher, you're in a job that has always had so much accountability, so much paperwork. You've got to teach things in 1,000,001 different styles. You've got to analyze bits and pieces. Do you think that sort of helped you, I'm not saying meteoric rise, but just help you self-teach yourself the sport at maybe a quicker rate than other people would have?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I love teaching, and you always have to think on your feet, and it's not a case of like, right, we're going to do this today, and off we go. You have to make it entertaining for kids now. You've got to relate it to them. So it possibly could be, because I was always thinking about like, right, how can I motivate these students? How can I get the best out of them? So it could be that. I also think as well, perhaps maybe, like I had some amazing sponsors through my career, and still now I have contact with them, sort of thing. But a lot of it, I also felt like if I want it, I've got to do it myself. And so I had to find the way myself. I mean, I remember doing fundraisers, thanks to the community of Whangarei, fundraisers of doing street collections. There's people going to cars, give you a release change to Sam. She goes away overseas. We do it on the radio, and I had some of my Whangarei Girls High students, help me with their like buckets to say help Sam go overseas. Those sort of things. You become dependent on yourself, because I was a late bloomer. I was doing it in my 30s. You know, people are going to want to invest in younger athletes because they've got a future ahead of them, you know. So even, when I was winning things, it was very often used 37-year-old school teacher from Fongaree, not like, youngster of the future. So, I just learned to be resilient, and also as well as it's that grit. And I saw the carrot and I was chasing that carrot. The carrot was there to be chased. It wasn't that far away. Just little things like that. But with mindset, it's that growth mindset. If I've achieved this now, what else can I achieve? And and I wasn't winning everything when I was a kid as well. I wasn't winning everything as a youngster. I talk now and everything, and I always say I wasn't winning everything when I was younger. I only started winning things when girls dropped out. And that's the truth. But I had the resilience to keep going until that stuff. And when they did drop out, I didn't drop out. I kept going.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Did you in your career, you're sort of looking ahead to the next thing? Did you have aspirations for Kona, or was that just the byproduct of winning Ironman New Zealand? Did you have a Kona dream?
No, not really. No, in those days, ITU and Kona were very separate. They're not as close as what because there wasn't so many athletes crossing over. So I didn't. But once you won, Ironman, right? That's it. Yeah, we're off. It was, that was the next step, sort of thing, and that was another great time as well. But unfortunately, probably by that time I was getting so old, I didn't have enough time to develop my Ironman career because, I'm not going to lie. I always wanted kids, I think there's a quote somewhere in one of those ITU, in 10 years time, where do you see yourself, and mine's like sitting on my deck with my 6 kids, eating my chocolate cake and cup of tea, but I'll stop at 3 though. Thank you. But I just didn't have long enough to develop that because I was then, I was like over 40 by that time, and then, age again. But no, Kona wasn't really, on the cards, I think, until I won Ironman New Zealand. Then yes.
And you got there and you experienced it. You had a really good swim, solid bike. I think I reading it took Chrissy Wellington about half the race to catch up to you on the bike. And so overall, the overall experience of the day.
She overtook me, and then I was quite happy with whatever. And I was like, don't get done for drafting, don't get done for drafting, whatever. Something. And then she literally just overtook me, and then it gives me a penalty, and I was like, hang on a minute, I've only just settling into my own pace. I go because it's my pace, my race, but that's racing. You have to deal with it. So I got a flipping penalty, but that's all right. I mean, I still wouldn't have caught her. That wasn't the reason, but no, I did have a good swim bike. I just, like a lot of us, fade on the run. The heat. Yeah, but that's racing, and you've got to deal with it. And
Just back to Ironman New Zealand and your victory there. What was it like when Stephen's on the moped going, if you keep up the pace, you'll get there? Which Stephen's a hell of a lovely fella. But when you're coming down Lake Terrace, and when was it that you knew you had it in the bag that Marinda's not going to get me? You come around Lake Terrace, you're going up Tongariro Street, you can hear the finish line, you come around onto the grass, down the chute, and you flip and win it. When did you know you had it, and what was it like going down as the champion?
I'm one of these people that I don't think that until I actually, get near them. So I would have said, I think the crowd started to build as you came over the little hill down sort of at the far end of Lake Terrace, down past Mere Road. The crowd started to build, and being a local, that was the best ever. So they got behind me, and it was just like, right, Sam, just, all you're doing is focusing on the step in front of you, just keep going, just keep going. I mean, that's, all these mantras you come up with. And then at that point, it was just keep going. Every step you take, you're getting nearer to the finish line. But they lifted me, and, you saw people you recognize, you're getting that, they like, go, Sam, you've got this, Sam. It's getting personal. It feels it when you're in that state. So they lifted me, and I just knew that I had to keep that cadence going, keep that going. And the number of times you've run up and down the lakefront, it's just like, this is just one more time, just one more training day. You just, just got to get there. And then I think it was when you got to the corner where the trout was, that last bit. Yes. I think I looked behind me and I could see nothing. So I felt, right, you've got this. And then you're smiling by that time. So it's pure adrenaline that gets you up to that corner till I see you guys. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm just one of these people that, I won't think that until I get near enough. I mean, even when I won the the World Cup in Mexico in 2008 when I won the whole thing. I remember thinking I was clearing everything, and Chris Gemble's on the side lane going, "Go, Wazza, you've got the whatever." And I was like, I can't relax until I've lifted that banner, you know. And I remember seeing, I don't know, some of one of those X-boarding games where the snowboard 1 mile clear, and she did this trick and went over the other side and fell off. And I was like, "Don't do that, Sam. Don't do that." So I didn't relax then until I got into the blue carpet, if that makes sense. So yeah, it wouldn't have been to that corner where I thought, actually, this is it, you know, because you've seen it in videos where people run by in the last bits, or if I had to crawl over the line. So it wouldn't have been till about the trout when I could hear your voice and look behind and couldn't see her. So I thought, right, you know, I've got this. But also it's when by that time the crowds, you know, they're the one, you know, I probably ran faster that bit because of the crowds.
You had 3 minutes over Rinny at the finish line. Is that blue carpet? Is that finishing shoot? Is that just tattooed onto the brain? Can you still relive that?
Yeah, no, definitely. Just just running up. You know, like, you know, you're going up past all the shops and stuff, and then come around the blue carpet, and you see it. Just that last little bit, you just want to savor it, if that makes sense. You know, you know how hard you've worked to get there. You know all the obstacles you've overcome, whether it's on the race or before, and you do just want to savor it. You know, going down that finish line, and then you start to see faces as well in the crowds, and yeah, it's just the best feeling ever. When you work so hard for a goal and you achieve it, it's the best feeling ever. And that's what I say to a lot of kids is you know, when you achieve your goals and it's the goal that you've planned for, it's taken you years and years to achieve, you can't beat that feeling. You know, like for me, winning my first ever World Cup in Japan, that was just, you can't beat that feeling. You know, wearing the number 1 in ITU, you know, when you had the, you know, you wear your cap and what number you are, where you wear the number 1. Those little things are gems, because not everyone gets to experience that, but it's the effort and the time that you put in to do it.
Do your kids understand what you achieved, Sam, or are you just mum?
Lola, do you understand what I achieved, or am I just mum? Just mum.
A pretty cool mum.
So yeah, but yeah, she gets a bit embarrassed with me because I'm actually sport coordinator at her school now at Taup Intermediate.
Yeah.
Which I really love. But we just had our sport awards, and I said, yeah, I'll get you a special guest. Don't stress, you know, whatever. And so I, you know, did the awards, and then I kept saying, no, it's going to be Olympian. It's a girl. It's going to be Olympics, and they go for all these famous Olympics, whatever. And I said, I can't tell you, whatever. And then anyway, they did a little bit, you know, and introduced the Olympian coming out, and I did a quick change into my, my Olympic uniform, my skirt and my shirt, which still fitted, which I was quite pleased, and came out, and all the kids are like going, oh. But as I said, whoever's standing up here talking, we've got the same story. We can tell you the same stories of hardships, the same stories of what it was like when your age, what we had to do to achieve our goals. You know, it's just a different person telling their story. And we all believe, we're all patient, we all worked hard, and we got there.
The cool thing is when you, Sam, with all the achievements you've had through your academic and through your sporting success. And I was saying before we started this interview, and say it again now, you're in such a happy place with these kids at the intermediate as a sports coordinator. You're inspiring, you're helping them to achieve their goals and set these goals. I mean, it's incredibly rewarding for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I do love. I mean, like, you know, right from a very young age, I wanted to be a PE teacher. There was just right from, you know, I was very lucky. I knew I wanted to be a PE teacher. I mean, everything. But I do love working with kids, and I think as well is, if, you know, the ones that, you know, they've got to know me now, if you actually follow my journey, I'm not like everyone else. It took me a lot longer, but I never stopped believing. You know, there's not many, you know, when they say to me, how old was I, or you know, when I was doing it, and I say like my 30s, they're like, what? You know, but it's like, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, how old you are. If you still believe and you want it and you work hard, you can achieve. And, you know, I think nowadays as well, that you've got to be a lot more, find different ways to tell your story. You know, kids, unfortunately, social media, you know, they're either, you know, think they'll copy what they see or think it's all going to happen to them, or, you know, too many of us will be comparing what we're doing, how well we're going now at 12, 13. You know, we're actually, it's not even playing field yet. We've got to go through puberty. You just want to learn the technique and have fun. You've got to have fun with your mates, you know, and get there, sort of thing. So, Yeah, but I do, and I hope I do inspire them, sort of thing. But like I say, unless like they say, Hayden Wild. Oh, I know Hayden Wild. Yeah, I know him quite well actually. He stayed at our house. It's like, but because Sam Warriner's not in the media, they're like, who? What? How old are you? Yeah. But hey, it is what it is. But the ones that want to will listen to my story and they will learn things from it, and the ones that don't, well, But I do enjoy being back with with the kids. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've never been too far away from the sport either, obviously, with
No.
Sweat Seven and Stephen. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, like most our family we bike run most weekends, sort of thing. Poor old Lola thinks, gosh, why was I born into this family? And Jackson, Rosie, they're obviously our foster kids. They're probably thinking, my gosh, probably been easier elsewhere. But no, we love it. We make it fun, obviously, sort of thing. But no, I'm still involved. I mean, I am training, but to me, I'm not training because I remember what I used to do. But when you're teaching and then you've got 3 lovely little kids, well, not little, 4, you just don't get the time. So I'm hoping I did ride out to Reparo and back, and I made it. So that's a tick. I can make the bike.
Good start.
But yeah, it's not like the old days.
And Brian mentioned the coaching through Sweat 7. You're still actively coaching, and you're often seen on volunteering at Ironman New Zealand as well.
Yeah, no, I do all the volunteering still. I mean, it really can't, this is our hometown, and Taupo's so proud of it, and it's awesome. Coaching, I help a few. I mean, I'm not really doing much coaching anymore, but I still help a few of my long-term athletes that are loyal to me, and we have such a good relationship, and I understand them so well. But not Sweat 7 really. Yeah, no, not as much. It's like life, you do chapters in your life, and that sort of one came to an end. But you move on to another chapter, So I mean, I had a great time. Sweat 7 was awesome, and I loved it. Really good time. But it just with the 3 little ones, it just got a bit too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the sort of person, if I'm your coach, then I give you 100%, and I want to help, sort of thing. So yeah, but and now, intermediate, I've just worked 9 to 3, so I'm always there for the kids after school and before school, which is, which I love. But I am more family orientated now, like, our little family, although Jackson, our youngest, we've only had him for 2 years. Yeah, he's certainly got challenging, but he's great. But I mean, but once again, you're providing with an opportunity, and we love him to bits. But and he's Rosie's real brother as well, so
that's cool. Yeah,
but no, it's good. But no, life is good, and like the same mindset though. You still got to keep positive, and you still got to keep chipping away at it. And I'm very wary of my mindset of how I am. With Lola. Like, going into Wales, I'm like, oh my gosh, at least, I'm very quite worried. But to her, I'm just like, well, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm going to be best prepared I can, and I'm just going to give it my best shot. So you're always positive. No, it's all good. Life's good. Yeah, and Taupo's still lovely as ever, and we can't wait for Worlds.
Well, you've used the word a few times, 100%, and I guess people listening to the Old School Tri Show, this episode will realise that you're just a 100% epic human being, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you chatting with us and sharing your stories and what you've contributed to triathlon. But also, well, this podcast is all about Ironman New Zealand, and you've been a huge part of that. So, Sam, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
I mean, Ironman New Zealand, I've competed in it, but I've also seen how hard the town works to put it on as well. Yeah. It's amazing, and I think, one thing I'd say from my racing is often it's the little towns when you go to race, it's the little towns, the community, they're the best races ever. And I think Taupo has got that feel about it. When you come to Taupo, we're so proud to have you here, and we'll do anything we can to help. And, like you say, I'm always volunteering, doing something, and I always will, because it's always been a part of me, and I wouldn't have achieved my dreams without, wouldn't have fulfilled my dreams if it wasn't for Taupo Ironman, because that's where it started.
Absolutely. Yep. The 3 of us here were unanimous on that one. It is our favourite town on the whole planet. Yeah. Thanks so much, Sam, for joining us.
No worries.